At the age of 24, Ahmed was a young man trying to balance his studies at university with a part-time job. He was like many other young Muslims in his situation, trying to make his way in a world where the lines between what is permissible, halal, and forbidden, haram, can sometimes feel blurry. His life was one of constant internal struggle. He prayed occasionally, sometimes on time and sometimes not, and he fasted during Ramadan, doing his best to stay on the straight path. But despite all of his efforts, Ahmed often felt lonely, a feeling that seemed to haunt him in the quiet moments between tasks. And this loneliness, this emptiness in his heart, was the perfect setup for what would come next. It all began innocently enough, as many stories do. Ahmed met Sara through a mutual friend. She was intelligent, kind-hearted, and had a great sense of humor that matched his own. At first, their conversations were nothing more than casual exchanges. They would talk about their studies, share funny memes, and discuss their dreams and aspirations. But these casual chats quickly became something more. Ahmed found himself feeling heard and understood in a way he hadn't in a long time. She became someone he could confide in, someone who listened when he spoke. In a world where Ahmed often felt isolated and disconnected, this bond felt like a lifeline. At first, he told himself that everything was fine, that it was normal for young people to connect and share moments like this. Everyone his age, it seemed, was in relationships or navigating romantic connections. He thought it was something he could handle without it affecting his faith or his daily life. But as time passed, their exchanges became more frequent, more personal, and soon they stretched into the early hours of the morning. Ahmed found himself eagerly waiting for Sara's messages. Each ping of his phone made his heart race with anticipation, and he would smile as he read their conversations over and over again. It was a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time, and it was intoxicating. Sara, too, seemed to invest emotionally in their connection. She would ask about his day, offer words of encouragement when he seemed stressed, and even share her own dreams and goals for the future. Ahmed began to imagine a future where she was a part of his life, where they would navigate the world together. It felt so natural, so right, that he convinced himself it was something that would eventually lead to something halal. But in the present, it was anything but halal. Still, Ahmed couldn't pull himself away. Weeks turned into months, and as their connection deepened, Ahmed started to prioritize their conversations above everything else. He would often stay up late texting Sara, sometimes missing his prayers or struggling to wake up for Fajr. Each time this happened, he would tell himself it was just this once. But deep down, he felt a growing sense of guilt. He knew he was crossing boundaries, yet he couldn't bring himself to stop. The connection with Sara had become too important to him. It felt like a source of comfort that he didn't want to let go of. One evening, Sara sent him a voice message. Her tone was soft and filled with concern as she asked about his struggles at work. Ahmed listened to the message over and over again, and with each replay, he felt an overwhelming sense of emotion. It was a warmth he couldn't explain, and it stirred something inside him. He began to rationalize their relationship, telling himself that maybe, just maybe, it could lead to something halal in the future. But every time he justified it, a little voice inside him reminded him that it wasn't right. It wasn't long before Ahmed's friends started to notice a change in him. He began skipping the weekly Islamic study groups they would attend together and stopped showing up for their regular Friday hangouts. When they asked him what was going on, he would brush them off, saying he was just too busy. But the truth was, Ahmed had started to lose touch with the things that once grounded him. His world now revolved around Sara. The more he invested emotionally in this relationship, the further he drifted from his faith. At first, Ahmed tried to convince himself that it was harmless, that he was just texting someone, and everyone his age was doing the same thing. But deep down, he knew the truth. He knew that every time he picked up his phone to text Sara instead of opening the Quran, every time he stayed up late talking to her instead of praying Isha, he was making a choice that was pulling him further away from Allah. Yet, despite this knowledge, he couldn't bring himself to let go of the relationship. Why? Because it was easy. It felt good, and walking away from it seemed impossible. One evening, as Ahmed scrolled through social media, he stumbled across an Islamic reminder. It was a quote that struck him deeply. When you love something more than Allah, it becomes a test. And let us delve into a detailed journey through the 10 significant signs that will precede the Day of Judgment. Last week we explored the trials known as fitan that will profoundly impact humanity. These trials will persist until the final one decisively separates the true believers from the hypocrites. During this period, Al-Mahdi will emerge, a pivotal figure in Islamic eschatology. The Prophet Muhammad emphasized the importance of recognizing and supporting Al-Mahdi. He said, "If you hear of him, pledge allegiance to him, even if you must crawl over snow to reach him." This highlights his immense role in restoring justice and righteousness to a world engulfed in chaos. Al-Mahdi will rule for 7 years, according to one narration, or between 7 to 9 years in another. During his reign, justice will prevail, and wealth will be distributed equitably, eliminating oppression and poverty. The emergence of Dajjal. However, during this time, the greatest trial of all will emerge, the appearance of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the false Messiah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, detailed events leading up to this period. In the years preceding Dajjal's emergence, Allah will impose gradual droughts upon the earth. In the first year, 1/3 of rainfall will cease, and vegetation will diminish accordingly. In the second year, rainfall and vegetation will be halved. By the third year, not a single drop of rain will fall, and all vegetation will wither. Livestock will perish, except for those spared by Allah's will. Humanity will face unprecedented famine and desperation. In this dire state, Dajjal will appear, initially presenting himself as a prophet. Gradually he will escalate his claims, eventually declaring himself to be the Lord and Creator. The Prophet provided detailed descriptions of Dajjal to ensure believers are not deceived. He emphasized that Dajjal is a human being with 2 eyes, though one will be defective, appearing like a floating grape. Despite his flawed vision, Dajjal will possess immense deceptive powers. Physical traits and movement. Dajjal is described as a man of a fair complexion, curly hair, and of medium height, neither excessively tall nor conspicuously short. His appearance will be ordinary enough for people to mistake him for someone else. The Prophet, peace be upon him, warned us not to be swayed by these characteristics or the miracles he performs. When Dajjal emerges, his initial day will be as long as a year. Scholars have interpreted this prolonged day in 2 ways. Some suggest it symbolizes the psychological burden of those trying times, making the day seem endless. Others take it literally, implying an extraordinary extension of time. The companions, concerned about their prayers, asked the Prophet how they should perform their daily prayers during such irregular days. The Prophet instructed them to estimate the intervals and maintain regular prayers. The second day will be equivalent to a month, the third to a week, and subsequent days will follow the usual cycle. This decreasing duration symbolizes the weakening of falsehood, as its nature is transient and unsustainable. Dajjal will traverse the earth within 40 days, entering every city and village except for Makkah and Medina, which are protected by angels. Dajjal's power of deception. When Dajjal arrives at Medina, he will stand atop a mountain and point toward the Prophet's mosque, declaring it to be a white palace. Remarkably, during the Prophet's time, the mosque was modest, constructed with mud and palm trunks. Yet, today, satellite images reveal the mosque's gleaming white domes, fulfilling this prophecy in an astounding manner. Dajjal will perform miracles to deceive people. He will command the skies to rain and the earth to yield crops, which will occur instantly. Villages that believe in him will flourish, with livestock thriving and famine disappearing. Conversely, those who reject him will face intensified drought and deprivation. He will even present a river of water and a river of fire, enticing people to choose between them. The Prophet, peace be upon him, warned that the river appearing as fire is in fact cool water for the believers. He advised them to close their eyes and drink from it, demonstrating their faith and trust in Allah. The ultimate deception. Dajjal's ability to manipulate perceptions extends further. He will claim to resurrect the dead by commanding two devils to take the form of a person's deceased parents. These devils, imitating the deceased, will plead with their child to believe in Dajjal, falsely affirming his divinity. Many will succumb to these illusions. One of the most striking incidents involves a young believer who confronts Dajjal, affirming his faith in Allah alone. Dajjal, enraged, will order the youth to be killed, splitting him in half. Yet by Allah's will, the youth will be resurrected, unwavering in his belief. This act will humiliate Dajjal, exposing his falsehood to the believers. A blessing. He also came to understand the importance of patience and trusting in Allah's timing. Ahmed made dua for Sara, asking Allah to guide her and grant her peace, just as he had found peace in his reconnection with Allah. With his newfound clarity, Ahmed dedicated himself to serving his community. He found joy in helping others and discovered that the more he gave, the more fulfilled he felt. Ahmed's story didn't end with a picture-perfect conclusion. Life wasn't suddenly free of struggles, but now he had the tools, the faith, and the determination to navigate them. His journey wasn't about perfection, it was about progress, sincerity, and seeking Allah's pleasure. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is Ahmed's story, a story of struggle, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. It's a reminder that no matter how far you may feel from Allah, He is always near. You just have to take that first step back. If you're struggling with something similar, know that you're not alone. It's never too late to realign your heart with what truly matters. Remember that every sacrifice you make for Allah's sake will be rewarded in ways you can't even imagine. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Islamic Squad for more stories and reminders. Until next time, may Allah guide us all.